So we're going to look real quick at some of the laws, and there are more than this than you see here. But the law first mentioned is an important one. The first time the word, for example, salvation is mentioned in the Bible is a prelude to other ways often it can be used throughout the whole Bible. So that's one law. The next law is law of literal interpretation. Let the verse say what the verse says and literally interpret it how it reads. Don't go to a spiritual application. Don't try to change it with the Greek or Hebrew. Don't try to make it something that it's not. The law of application is really just the idea of fixing the doctrinal meaning before you go to any other deeper meaning. The law of progressive revelation. The law of complete mention is another one. The Bible without any reference to tradition or the church is God's complete revelation on anything important to you, to your spiritual life. So you got to remember, we stick in Romans through Philemon as a main Christian, but the whole Bible is good for doctrine and learning. The law of context. Do we understand what and who this letter or book of the Bible, who it was written to, and also within a verse? The law of negative discrimination. That's to discriminate negatively against a verse and say that it's wrong, even though it clearly states something that you might disagree with. The law of agreement. So never use that's just never using a verse to contradict another verse. And some of the ones I didn't put on here, the law of repetition. God repeats materials for a reason with emphasis. Laws of triple references. There can be not just double application, but there can be sort of within a verse, there's a historical meaning, and it could be example of the actual time that it was about. It can also have a doctrinal message, and it can also have a devotional message. The laws of different types. There's different types of people that represent Jesus Christ. There's different types of people that represent the church. Different types of Israel in the Bible. We did talk about the law of double application, that a verse can have sort of different meanings, even though it was written for one time period. It could have a double application. And the law of the gap. Yes, the Bible will skip periods of time without comment. And so there are large gaps. You can see up to 1900 years in the same verse sometimes if you're talking about first coming of Jesus Christ and then the second advent, for example, all can be within a verse. And then the law of, the main key is just rightly dividing the word of truth. Keeping the messages to the different people that they belong to and how God dealt with the covenants and salvation with these individuals. And there's a lot of reasons that really cause wrong interpretation. And the hermeneutic laws given that we just went over can be violated really, easily by 4 simple ways by anybody, by scholars, by the lost, by the saved, by just wrongly using the verses and not rightly dividing them. The first way you see a lot of error is someone wants to prove a theory or a proposition, and they'll add words or subtract words or just pick parts of verses to try to prove what they believe. The Bible is truth, and the Bible is the Bible, and we're not to try to pervert it and change it in its meaning. The second thing you see is people want to use final authority as interpretation or subtract words from a verse to prove your point. That's one thing that you'll see people do. And other people will remove a verse from its context, which makes it mean something that it wasn't really truly meant to be originally. If you put it back together, all the verses, then you see a different story than what the person is trying to prove. Very scary thing, and it's very common. And then people running to the original so-called autographs, which really don't exist. They try to say they're going to the original Greek, but there's really no such thing. And they try to say they're going to the original Hebrew, and again, same problem. And again, this is to change the verses and the meanings to meet generally speaking, to meet the way they want to interpret. The other way I see it, and it's very similar to this fourth one, is people running to a certain version of the Bible that says what they want to say in an argument. Again, a very, very dangerous thing. Stick with the KJV and you won't go wrong.